In today's video, we're going through 3 true stories found on Reddit where things took a turn for the creepy. From a weird Christmas tale and a harmless paper route that turned unsettling to an innocent weekend of LARPing that went horribly wrong, these stories will have you second-guessing those harmless encounters. So, settle in, get comfy, and enjoy. If you end up liking these stories, don't forget to subscribe for more. I recently heard a story that brought back old memories of my dad's crazy ex-girlfriend. This took place when I was around 10 years old, so I guess it would have been the year 1997. My parents had gotten divorced several years prior, so my little sister, 2 years younger, and I stayed with our dad every other weekend. One day, he introduced us to his new girlfriend, Rachel, a tall blonde woman who had apparently won some kind of beauty pageant. I remember those first months getting to know Rachel as fun. She seemed like a nice lady. My initial impression of her was definitely helped by the fact that she had a cuddly gray parrot and a pet raven that could talk, which of course made my younger self ecstatic. But after a while, things started to change. I began to notice she could be a bit odd at times, saying strange things or acting weird. We started seeing her less frequently when staying with our dad. Then one day, he told us they'd broken up, and that we wouldn't be seeing her anymore. He also told us not to talk to her, or go home with her if she showed up at school. Not long after that, Rachel really started harassing my dad. She would randomly turn up at places we visited during weekends, trying to talk to us. She called him nonstop when we were home, crying and making threats. It usually didn't stop until he unplugged the phone. Years later, I found out she had even threatened to kill me and my sister on several occasions, which led my dad to get a restraining order. Rachel also keyed my dad's car, broke into his office to trash it, and stole a lot of money that he never got back. She even started writing threatening letters to my mom. My parents have always been good friends since the divorce, so it was especially concerning when it all culminated in a letter from the authorities, accusing my dad of being a child molester. I still vividly remember how my mom sat us down in our room, holding the letter, a deep look of concern on her face, and asked if Dad had ever touched us inappropriately. Of course, he never had. It turned out that Rachel had falsely accused him in an attempt to prevent him from seeing us. I remember feeling really angry and upset that she had gone to such lengths. The last memory I have of Rachel was a few weeks before Christmas. We were staying at my dad's place over the weekend. It was a 2-story apartment complex with a large window spanning an entire wall from floor to ceiling in the living room, where we had just sat down to watch TV. Next to the window was a glass door leading onto a stone patio that bordered a lawn ending with a tall hedge. On this particular day, the outdoor lights were off, so it was pitch black outside as the intro to Superman started playing. A while into the episode, I suddenly heard a strange, sharp noise coming from the window. It sounded like something was clawing at the glass, trying to get in. The sofa I was sitting on was placed right in front of the window, so my back was to it when I slowly turned around to look over my shoulder. My heart thumped in my chest, and the hairs on my neck stood up as if I were being watched. But all I saw was pitch black darkness lurking behind my own reflection. By this point, Dad had also heard the sound and got up to turn on the patio lights. When the outside suddenly flooded with light, I found myself staring into the face of a smiling blonde woman peering into our living room. Need I tell you that I screamed? Both my sister and I shot up from the couch, like it had been scorched with fire, and ran behind our dad. When I looked toward the window again, I saw Rachel, with both of her hands pressed against the glass, cupping them beside her face as she tried to peer inside. The patio door was right next to her. I tugged on Dad's shirt and whispered to ask if the door was locked when she reached toward the handle. That millisecond of doubt flashing across my dad's face still haunts me to this day. Rachel truly looked like a madwoman as she furiously jerked the handle, pausing now and then to peer through the glass again. I remember thinking Dad looked oddly calm as he ushered us around a corner wall, telling us to stay out of sight while he walked toward the patio door. We begged him not to go outside, thinking she might have a knife. He cracked the door open slightly, firmly holding onto the handle, and asked what the hell she was doing in his backyard. She tried to get him to let her in, smiling and tossing her hair, but Dad wouldn't budge. He told her to leave or he'd call the cops, to which she eventually conceded, leaving behind a bunch of Christmas presents. When Rachel was out of sight from the window, Dad went outside to make sure she was gone, picking up what she had left behind on his way back in. None of us wanted anything to do with the presents. Something just felt really off about them, so they ended up in the trash, still fully wrapped. I'm from that small town just outside of the city, where life moves slower and everyone knows each other. Our neighborhood was always green, with sprawling lawns and tree-lined streets that seemed to glow in the summer. The houses were mostly modest, with a few larger ones standing out here and there, and people took pride in keeping their yards tidy. The kind of place where kids could ride their bikes freely, and you could always hear the distant hum of someone mowing their lawn or chatting over a white picket fence. It was in this quiet setting that I had my first job, delivering papers, starting at age 13. From age 13 until almost 15, I had a paper route. I delivered papers to people's doors 6 days a week. Most of my customers, aside from the occasional grump or chatterbox, were absolutely wonderful. Many of them were older, and they seemed genuinely happy to see me every day just to have someone to talk to. A lot of them would leave me granola bars, water bottles, and sometimes even tips. Winter holidays were the best because everyone who could left huge tips. It was a pretty good first official job. Eventually, some of the snowbirds returned for the season and became my customers. One couple, Louise and Gerald, always sticks out in my mind. They started off as normal, friendly people. But I noticed one Sunday, the only day I had to get up early to deliver papers, that Gerald was outside. He chatted me up, which wasn't unusual, but I was still in my Britney Spears shirt and polar bear pajama pants. He complimented me, saying I was dressed cutely, which confused me because it was just pajamas. I didn't think much of it at the time and went about my day. Something else to note. Louise was always smiling. It wasn't a warm, friendly smile, though. There was something unnerving about it, almost like she was trying too hard. In retrospect, it gave me meek and mild, subservient vibes. Their garden also had 3 different dog headstones, all marked with the name Fido, which struck me as odd. I figured maybe they were just being polite and putting out headstones from other people. But then one day, Louise was out with a new dog. She introduced it to me, and guess what? They named it Fido. All of their dogs were named Fido, and they were all Shelties, just like the one she was walking. I thought it was strange, so I told my mom. She brushed it off, saying it was probably just how they dealt with grief. Here's the thing, they kept trying to get me to come inside. They'd invite me in for tea, which is weird because where I'm from, people are more likely to offer coffee and donuts, if anything, but even that isn't common. I'd always decline, saying I had more papers to deliver. And honestly, I just wanted to go home. Gerald kept complimenting my outfits, even though they were just pajamas. One morning, he got closer while complimenting me and even touched my shoulder. That was when I thought, I gotta go, and left. At the time, I didn't tell my mom. Our relationship was good, but I feared that sharing my concerns would upset her or make her not trust me. This was also near the end of my experience with CSA, which she still doesn't know about, so I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Then, right before I moved and gave up my paper route, something really bizarre happened. It was a Sunday, the last Sunday I had the route, to be exact, and I was out early, delivering papers while it was still a bit dark. Gerald was outside again. He complimented my outfit, getting creepily close, and invited me inside. I tried to shut it down by saying, I really don't think my mom would appreciate me being gone longer than she expects. She's strict. It wasn't entirely true, but I had to say something. He seemed annoyed and said, Wouldn't your mom prefer that you respect your elders and not turn down an invitation? I felt the color drain from my face, and I quickly made up an excuse about my dog being sick and needing to hurry. As I walked away, I could hear him making more comments about my hair. He often talked about how my curly, voluminous hair reminded him of the 80s. I moved to the next house as fast as I could without running. I didn't see Gerald again after that, but I did see Louise. She never stopped inviting me inside to play with Fido or have tea, but I always declined. Each time she seemed disappointed. So that's my weird paper route story. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but Gerald and Louise definitely gave off some funky vibes. I'm into LARPing, and for those who don't know, it's where we spend the weekend in the woods dressed as medieval fantasy characters, interacting with each other in character. I usually go to these events with my friend and my partner, and we meet up with more friends once we're there. There are all types of people at these events, but 99.9% of them are absolute angels. I had yet to meet the 0.1%, but I really wish I hadn't. Before the event started, a guy, let's call him Greg, swung by my tent while I was setting it up. My partner and friend were up the path setting up a secondary tent and couldn't see me from where they were. There were about 5 other people to my right, all busy with their own setups. I had never met Greg before, but as soon as he said hi, I got a bad feeling. He was around 5'10", obese, and had a neck beard. Basically what you'd picture if you thought of an incel stereotype. He approached me and asked if I was here alone. I said no, but I didn't mention my partner or friend specifically. Then he asked if I was a gamer, to which I said yes. From that point on, he started rambling about Ark Survival, a game I've personally clocked over 3,000 hours in. He started spouting blatantly wrong information, misnaming the dinos, and talking about things that are impossible to do in the game, even with mods. Every time I corrected him, I could see him getting more and more annoyed. I ended the conversation by saying I needed to get back to setting up the tent, and he eventually left. Fast forward to around 10 or 11 p.m., the event had started. That means any mention of the real world, like cars, TV, or video games, is forbidden by a rule called decorum. We were sitting around a campfire, playing a game with my friends and partner, when Greg showed up again. He sat down next to me, so I scooted over. He scooted closer, so I moved again, and he followed. Eventually, I got up and sat next to my friend. During the game, he kept referring to the real world and video games, so we told him he either needed to leave or make an effort to stay in character. He got up and left. The next day, I went up a trail for some fake hunting, gathering resources for the game. As I was heading back down in the middle of the woods with no camps nearby, there he was, just standing in the trail, waiting for me. He asked if I'd like to go get coffee or something sometime, to which I politely declined. I told him I needed to collect plants for my potions, so I was heading back to the village to drop off my bow and grab my basket. I was walking fast, but he kept pace. Then, out of nowhere, he grabbed my arm and said, "I could come with you. You, me, alone in the woods looking for plants. That sounds like the perfect scenario." I freaked out and sped up, practically running down the trail toward the village. When I got there, my neighbors saw me and noticed something was off. They asked if I needed help, and I used our in-game code, in all honesty, to signal that this wasn't part of the game and that Greg was being extra creepy and following me. They grabbed their foam weapons and told him to back off, or they'd carve him a new one. I stayed with them for a few minutes, trying to calm down before rejoining my friends. Later that night, after some fighting and encounters in the game, I decided to go to the bathroom around midnight. I hadn't seen Greg since about 7 p.m., so I figured everything was fine. But as I was coming back, in complete darkness, he jumped out from behind a bush and pinned me against a tree. He started ranting that he wasn't proud of me, that I'd been leading him on, and that he couldn't understand why I'd hold other guys' hands and hug them, but not him. I told him I hold my fiance's hand and hug my friends, but he wasn't either. I also said, "In all honesty, you need to stop this." To which he responded, "But what if in all honesty, I just want a little kiss?" "Huh? Just a little kiss, and then you can go." I yelled and tried to hit him to get away. My friends, who were on the other side of a bridge nearby, heard me scream. They grabbed their weapons and, along with my neighbors, came rushing down the bridge to help me. Greg let me go and turned to face my rescuers, claiming he was just interrogating me for information about the demons, our in-game foes. My friends, who had already seen Greg acting like an asshole before, told him not to move. They said they were going to get the owner of the LARP to deal with him. Greg tried to talk his way out of it, but my neighbors told him to sit down, or he'd be visiting death's altar before he could even move. My fiancé, who was understandably worried and upset, took me away from the situation. The owner came, and after I explained everything that happened, he took Greg aside for a conversation. From what I heard, Greg was kindly asked not to attend any future events. Thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed these stories. Have you ever had a similar experience that made your skin crawl? Drop it in the comments. If you like these stories, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support helps us keep these eerie tales coming. And if you're feeling extra brave, share this video with a friend who might just appreciate the chills. Stay safe out there, and until next time, thanks for watching.